Dust rolled through the floodlights in slow, choking sheets as rotor wash from departing helicopters
Command, something
churned the
down.
night
We need
air
medevacs,
into a
over.
constant low
Hang
roar.
in there. Help's coming.
The staging area sat on the edge of a dark
Stay with me.
Afghan
Where's
valley,
Kurt?
lit in harsh white pools that
Okay,
barely
applying
pushed
pressure.
back
Hold
the
on.
surrounding black. Weapons were laid out on crates. Magazines were slammed home. Hands moved on muscle
Oh,
memory
thank you. This
alone.
is beautiful.
The
I did
SEAL
it for
element looked
you.
battered,
I love it. You're
armor
so
scuffed,
sweet.
Thank you.
sleeves darkened with sweat and grime, videos tight with the kind of exhaustion that came after something went very wrong. No one spoke loudly. They didn't have to. A senior SEAL operator broke the silence, his voice low, edged with finality. He's gone. We don't have eyes. We don't have comms. We don't have a body. A younger operator shook his head, staring at the dirt. We're not running another team into a kill zone for a ghost. A few men nodded. Others stared past the lights toward the valley, as if expecting something to rise out of the darkness. As if hope alone could bring back what the mountains had swallowed. Off to the side, separated from the cluster of SEALs, a lone Marine stood near a stack of ammo cans. Female, late 20s, calm in a way that felt carved from stone rather than practiced. Gunnery Sergeant Reese Caldwell rested behind her rifle, optics already aligned toward the black ridgeline where the world disappeared into shadow. Her eyes never left the valley, not once. Someone glanced her way and scoffed. Why is a Marine even in our overwatch? Another voice followed, barely hiding the irritation. Probably here to take notes. Reese didn't react. She didn't turn. She didn't blink. Her breathing stayed slow. Her rifle remained steady. In her world, talking did not change reality. Observation did. Patience did. Discipline did. She had been in country long enough that the dust no longer bothered her. It settled into the creases of her gloves, clung to the edges of her boonie hat, and worked its way into every seam of her gear. She brushed none of it away. The grit was part of the job, always had been. She was 28 years old, United States Marine Corps, scout sniper, attached to the task force as long-range overwatch. Not part of the SEAL platoon, not in their circle, not in their conversations. Reese stood several yards from the main cluster of operators, kneeling behind her rifle as if the mission were still unfolding instead of already bleeding out in front of them. Her face was plain, no makeup, no jewelry, no visible attempt to look intimidating or impressive. Dark blonde hair pulled tight and buried beneath the brim of her boonie. Her eyes stayed on the valley, not on the men around her. Her hands were weathered, the skin thickened and scarred in small, forgettable ways. The kind of hands that came from years of cold steel, hot barrels, and long hours in uncomfortable positions. The rifle in front of her looked older than most of the weapons around it. The finish was worn smooth in places where fingers had rested 1,000 times. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't new. It worked. Reese's movements were minimal. No fidgeting, no pacing, no nervous habits. When she shifted her weight, it was slow and deliberate, as if she had already calculated the most efficient way to do it. Behind her, the SEALs talked, not to her, around her. Lieutenant Evan Holt stood near a folding table covered in maps and scattered gear, his helmet resting at his feet. He was the acting ground lead now, whether he wanted the responsibility or not. His eyes kept drifting toward the dark valley, then back to the men reloading magazines. Petty Officer Mason Kincaid sat on a crate, cutting away a blood-soaked sleeve from one of the wounded operators. His hands worked fast, but his jaw was clenched so tight the muscles twitched. Petty Officer Jonah Pike hovered over a radio, adjusting dials, trying different frequencies, hoping for something other than dead air. And then there was the old man. Master Chief Dalton Garrett stood slightly apart, arms folded, shoulders heavy. He had the look of a man who had been through enough wars to recognize patterns he did not like. His face was lined, weathered by decades of sun and salt water and decisions that left marks deeper than scars. 62 years old, Desert Storm, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan. The kind of resume that didn't fit on paper. He watched Reese. Not obviously, not in a way anyone would notice unless they were paying attention. But his eyes tracked her movements the way a father watches a daughter cross a street in heavy traffic. The seal spoke in fragments. Atlas should have been on the left side. That blast pattern wasn't random. They knew exactly where we'd funnel. Nobody said Commander Jameson Kane's full call sign. Atlas, the man who was supposed to be leading them out, the man who wasn't here. No one asked Reese what she had seen. No one asked her what she thought. She did not offer. Instead, she watched the valley through her optic. Even though part of her knew it was pointless from this distance, the habit was ingrained too deeply to break. She studied wind drift by the way dust moved across the open ground. She counted seconds between distant, irregular pops that might have been small arms fire or might have been nothing at all. She noted the spacing between faint heat signatures that flickered and disappeared on the edge of her thermal. Not a patrol, not random. Too even, too deliberate. Her expression did not change. Inside, she felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Not fear, recognition. 7 years earlier, she had stood on another piece of ground, thousands of miles away, listening to another group of Marines argue about whether a recovery was possible. Her older brother had been a Marine sniper too, better than she ever admitted out loud. Sergeant Wyatt Caldwell, 24 years old, Helmand Province, 2019. His element went dark during a movement through an urban corridor. The radio traffic turned confused, then thin, then silent. Command called it too hot, no confirmed life, no recovery authorization. A folded flag arrived before a body ever did. Reese never talked about him. Not in the barracks, not with friends, not with the chaplain. She carried him the same way she carried everything else, quietly. A few feet away, a SEAL laughed once, short and humorless. "So the Marine's just going to keep staring at the hills?" Another voice answered. "Guess she's hoping to spot a ghost." Reese did not react. Her cheek remained pressed lightly against the stock. Her breathing stayed slow. She adjusted her optic a single click, then another. Somewhere deep in the valley, something shifted. Not visibly, not dramatically, but enough. Reese's eyes narrowed a fraction. She said nothing. She only watched. Master Chief Garrett moved closer, his boots making no sound on the packed dirt. He stopped just behind her, close enough to speak without raising his voice. "They're already writing him off," Garrett said quietly. Reese didn't respond, didn't need to. Garrett looked out at the valley, then back at the cluster of SEALs. "I've seen this before." That made Reese pause, just barely, a fraction of tension in her jaw. "Helmand," Garrett continued. His voice was rough, worn smooth in places like old leather. 2019, urban corridor, Marine sniper element went dark. Reese's breathing changed, slower, deeper. "Command called it too hot," Garrett said. "No recovery authorization. I was advisor on that op, senior enlisted. I had 30 years in. I knew the terrain. I knew we could get him." He stopped. The silence stretched. "But I followed orders," Garrett said. The words landed like stones. "I followed the chain of command. I trusted the decision-makers sitting behind screens 200 miles away. And Sergeant Wyatt Caldwell came home in a bag." Reese's hand tightened on the rifle, just enough for Garrett to see. "I knew your brother," Garrett said. "Good Marine, better sniper. He saved 6 men that day before the building came down. 6 men who are alive right now because Wyatt held that position when he should have pulled back." Reese finally spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I know. Do you know who one of those 6 men was?" Reese turned her head slightly, not looking at him, just enough to show she was listening. "Lieutenant Jameson Kane," Garrett said. "Fresh platoon commander, second deployment. Wyatt bought him time to pull his team out. Kane made it. Wyatt didn't." The information settled over Reese like cold water. Garrett shifted his weight. "I've carried that for 7 years. every day. I could have gone in. I could have pushed back. I could have done something other than stand there and watch good men make bad calls. He paused. Your brother died because I followed orders, Reese. I won't make that mistake twice. Reese looked at him now, fully. Her eyes were hard, but there was something else beneath the surface. Not anger, understanding. They're not going back for him, Reese said. I know. Command won't authorize it. I know that too. Reese turned back to the valley. Then he's as good as dead. Garrett was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his vest and pulled out a small object. A compass, old. The brass casing was tarnished, the glass face scratched from years of use. This was Wyatt's, Garrett said. He gave it to me before that last patrol. Said if something happened, I should give it to you. Told me you'd know what to do with it. Reese stared at the compass. She didn't take it. Not yet. He always found his way back, Garrett said, until he didn't. But not because he got lost, because we didn't go get him. He set the compass down next to Reese's rifle. Don't let it happen again. Then he walked away, back toward the cluster of seals, leaving Reese alone with the valley and the weight of 7 years pressing down on her shoulders. She picked up the compass, turned it over in her hand. The metal was warm. It felt heavier than it should have. Inside the operations tent, voices rose and fell in tight, controlled arguments. Lieutenant Holt paced like a caged animal. He wasn't loud at first. He was shaking, not from fear, from the strain of being the one who had to decide what came next. We go back, Holt said, voice tight, pointing at the map as if sheer force could bend reality. We go now, while it's still dark. Senior Chief Marcus Hayes didn't move. His eyes were hard. His face looked carved from fatigue. And we bring who? We already pulled half the platoon out bleeding. Holt slammed a fist onto the table. The sound was sharp in the cramped tent. We bring everyone we have. We don't leave him. A radio speaker crackled. A higher command voice came through, calm and distant. The kind of calm that sounded like it was sitting behind screens instead of in dust and blood. No confirmation of life. No recovery authorization. Holt stared at the radio like it had insulted him. You want confirmation? He was talking 30 seconds before he disappeared. No beacon, no comms, the voice replied. Area remains hot. Enemy strength unknown. We cannot authorize another insertion. Holt looked around the tent, searching faces for support. Some men met his eyes and looked away. Some stared at their boots. Some had the numb expression of people who had already started grieving because it was easier than hoping. Senior Chief Hayes exhaled slowly, as if he had been holding his breath since the first explosion. We can't keep bleeding people, he said, and there was no cowardice in it, only a seasoned understanding of the math of war. We send another team in there blind, we lose more, then nobody comes home. The tent filled with murmurs, low voices, broken fragments, arguments that could not become full arguments because everyone knew what was at stake. Then someone said the words that turned the air cold. He's gone. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't dramatic. It landed like a door closing. Lieutenant Holt flinched as if he'd been struck. Outside, Reese heard it, every word. She sat quietly with her rifle across her knees, listening. Her face showed nothing. Her eyes were fixed somewhere beyond the canvas walls, as if she could still see the valley through them. She didn't speak. Not yet. But inside her, something hard and ancient shifted into place. The same thing that had formed years ago when another recovery never came. Master Chief Garrett stepped out of the tent and found her. He didn't say anything, just stood there, waiting. Reese looked up at him. They're done. They are. Command won't change their mind. They won't. Reese stood slowly. She slung her rifle across her back and checked her gear with the kind of methodical precision that spoke of a decision already made. What are you doing? Garrett asked, though he already knew. Going back on glass, Reese said. One more look. Garrett nodded. Want company? No, she paused. But I'll need something. Name it. Reese met his eyes. If I find him alive, I'm going in. With or without authorization. Garrett didn't hesitate. Then you'll need blood expanders, thermal blanket, extra ammunition, and this. He pulled a folded map from his vest, marked with pencil notations. Patrol patterns. I've been watching them for 3 hours. They move in cycles, 15-minute rotations. Reese took the map, studied it. You knew I'd go. I hoped you would. This is disobeying a direct order. Yes, it is. Garrett's voice was steady, certain. And if they court-martial you for it, I'll stand right beside you. But they won't, because you're going to bring him back. Reese folded the map and tucked it into her vest. What if I can't? Garrett looked at her for a long moment. Then at least he won't die alone wondering if anyone cared enough to try. The words hung in the air between them. Reese nodded once. Then she turned and walked back to her position, overlooking the valley. She went back on glass. Not because anyone asked her to, not because command told her to. She did it because the valley was not finished with her yet. She lay prone on a narrow shelf of rock, overlooking the dark cut where the blast had swallowed Commander Kane. The night had cooled, but heat still lingered in the ground. Smoke drifted in thin layers, blurring edges, distorting depth. She switched to thermal. At first there was only noise, warm rocks, cooling blast craters, residual heat from burning debris, shapes that meant nothing. She slowed her breathing and let her eyes settle. She did not search wildly. She searched patiently, grid by grid, sector by sector. Then she saw it. Not a clear body, not a bright outline. A faint smear of heat tucked deep inside the shadow of the ravine, so weak it almost blended into the background. It moved, barely, a few inches, then stopped. Long pause, then it moved again. Reese increased magnification. The image sharpened just enough to tease detail out of shadow. A curved shape, uneven, jagged along one side. It looked wrong, not organic, not rock. Her jaw tightened slightly. She recognized the broken arc of a helmet shell. She watched longer. The heat smears shifted. A limb dragged. Another pause. Then a small, controlled motion. Not the spasms of someone dying. Not the twitching of nerve damage. Purposeful movement. Low, painful, deliberate. She recognized that too. It was the crawl of someone who had trained to move while hurt. Someone who knew that stopping meant dying. Reese didn't announce it dramatically. She didn't raise her voice. She keyed her radio and spoke in the same tone she used for target calls. Possible survivor. 1 individual. Ravine grid 7 Delta. The response came quickly. Skeptical. Thermals can ghost. Residual heat. Another voice added. Could be debris. Reese kept watching. The figure shifted again. She saw an arm lift. Saw the heat bloom briefly brighter at the forearm, then settle. She zoomed further. Watched the shape press something tight against its own thigh. Hold. Release. Hold again. Reese spoke. I'm watching him apply a tourniquet. The radio went quiet. Not the hiss of dead air. Not the chaos of overlapping voices. A thick, uncomfortable silence. She stayed on glass. The figure's movements were clumsy now, weaker, but still intentional. She added one more sentence. He's alive. No one answered. Inside the operations tent, Lieutenant Holt stood frozen with one hand braced against a table. Senior Chief Hayes stared at the map without seeing it. Jonah Pike slowly turned a volume knob that no longer needed adjusting. The command channel broke in again, colder than before. Thermal imagery is not confirmation. No recovery authorization at this time. Reese did not respond. She did not argue. She did not try to convince anyone. She understood something they did not. Arguing burned time. Time was blood. She reached into her pack and pulled items out, lined them up with the care of a surgeon preparing instruments. extra water bladders, blood expanders, antibiotics, morphine auto-injectors, hemostatic gauze, pressure bandages. She added a folded thermal blanket, then more magazines, then a spare radio battery, then a second tourniquet. She moved with the same efficiency she used to clean her rifle. No wasted motion, no visible hesitation. Around her, SEALs continued talking in low voices about contingencies and risk percentages and what command would or would not approve. Reese did not listen. She was already somewhere else. She tightened the straps on her pack, checked her sidearm, slid her rifle back into position. Lieutenant Holt noticed the movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned. "What are you doing?" Reese did not look at him. She finished cinching a strap, stood, shouldered the weight. Then she met his eyes. "Getting him." Holt stared at her. "You can't just walk into that valley." Reese's voice remained level, flat, final. "He's not walking out of it." No one laughed. No one scoffed. For the first time since she had arrived, the full attention was on her. Master Chief Garrett stepped forward from the shadows where he'd been standing. He moved to Reese's side and held out something small, Wyatt's compass. "He always found his way back," Garrett said quietly, so only she could hear. "Now it's your turn to bring someone home." Reese took the compass, felt the weight of it, the history. She clipped it to her vest, right over her heart. Then she looked at Garrett one more time. No words passed between them. None were needed. She turned toward the exit, toward the dark, toward the place where everyone else had already decided there was nothing left to save. And she walked. Reese Caldwell did not wait for a briefing. She did not wait for a signature. She did not wait for the kind of permission that came wrapped in caution in paperwork. She waited for the one thing that mattered, the last slice of night before dawn, when shadows were still deep enough to hide movement, but the horizon was just light enough to read terrain without a flashlight. The kind of time that belonged to hunters and the desperate. She moved out without fanfare. No goodbye, no speech, no dramatic glance back. Just a quiet slip past the outer wire, a nod to a watchman who did not stop her, and then she was gone into the cold, broken land. Alone. The valley breathed beneath her like a sleeping animal. She took the high route first, working along the spine of a ridge where the rock cut jagged against the sky. From a distance, she would look like another dark seam in the earth. Up close, every movement was careful, controlled, slow enough to avoid the scrape of gear against stone. She low-crawled when she had to, elbows digging in, knees sliding forward, body pressed flat, making herself smaller than the night. When she reached open ground, she waited, not for seconds, for long minutes, letting her eyes and ears gather information the way some people gathered air. Down below, faint figures moved through the valley floor. Not a mass, not a chaotic crowd. Small groups spaced like a net being tightened one loop at a time. Patrols, hunting. Reese watched them drift in patterns that were not random. Their spacing was deliberate. Their pauses were timed. Their heads turned in the same direction at the same moment, responding to unseen signals. She did not rush. Rushing was how people got found. She listened instead, not just to voices, but to the small, honest sounds that men could not control. The crunch of gravel under boots, the clink of a sling buckle, a cough cut short, a whispered word carried by the wind. Each sound told her where they were without her needing to see them. She shifted her path by inches, then yards, always keeping the ravine's shadow line in her mind, like a destination carved into her bones. The air smelled like burnt dust and cordite. Somewhere far off, a dog barked once, then went quiet. Reese kept moving. Her radio crackled, low, barely audible. A voice she recognized, Master Chief Garrett. Not on the official channel, personal frequency. The kind of communication that didn't get recorded or monitored. Phantom, Ironside, radio check. Reese keyed once. No words, just a brief squelch to confirm she was receiving. "Copy your break," Garrett said. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had talked people through worse. Patrol pattern holding from earlier observation, 15-minute cycles. You've got a window at the 12-minute mark. North approach has the lightest coverage. Reese keyed twice, acknowledged. She checked her watch, marked the time, adjusted her route slightly north. Weather's changing, Garrett continued. Wind picking up from the west, 3 to 5 knots. Adjust your holdover accordingly if you need to take a shot. Another double key from Reese. Silence for a moment. Then Garrett's voice came back, quieter, more personal. Your brother used to do this, move through enemy territory like a ghost. I watched him once in Sangin. Thought I was good at moving quiet until I saw Wyatt work. He had a gift for it. Reese said nothing, but her hand moved unconsciously to the compass clipped over her heart. He'd be proud of you right now, Garrett said. Scared as hell, but proud. Reese keyed once. Then she clicked the radio to standby and kept moving. As the horizon began to gray, the danger changed. Darkness hid her, but it also hid them. Light would reveal shapes, but it would also sharpen edges. The wrong kind of dawn could turn a silhouette into a target. She found a fold in the terrain and dropped into it, letting the earth swallow her profile. She waited there, motionless, while 2 fighters walked along the ridgeline above. They were close. Too close. Close enough that Reese could hear their breathing. Close enough that she could smell stale sweat and cheap tobacco when the wind shifted. One of them paused. For a moment, her body tightened. The instinct to reach for her weapon rose like a reflex. She forced it down. Do not move. Do not blink. Do not become a shape that can be recognized. Her breathing slowed until it barely existed. Her heartbeat felt loud in her ears, and she willed it quieter, as if discipline alone could silence blood. The fighter shifted his weight. Gravel crunched. A small stone rolled and clicked against another. Reese did not move. In the dark corner of her mind, a memory flashed without permission. A white bag, a zipper line, the weight of a folded flag in hands that did not feel real. Her brother's body had come home like that, not in a helicopter with rotors pounding hope into the air, just in silence, just in a bag. The memory hit her like a cold hand around her throat. She swallowed it, held still. The fighters passed. Their boots moved away. Their voices faded into the valley's noise. Only then did Reese allow herself one slow breath. She kept moving. Her route angled down toward the ravine in long, patient steps. She was careful to keep to hard ground where her boots would not sink and leave prints. She avoided patches of loose gravel. She skirted thorny brush that could snag fabric and betray her with sound. She used every fold in the terrain as cover, every shadow line as a shield. The ravine appeared ahead like a black wound cut into the earth. Even in the dim light, it looked deeper than she remembered from her scope. The blast had torn the edges and scattered rock in jagged patterns. Dust still hung there in thin layers, as if the ground itself had not finished settling after being ripped open. Reese moved to the lip and lowered herself slowly, testing each foothold before trusting it. Loose stone shifted under her boot and she froze, hand pressed to rock, listening for any response. Nothing. She descended. The air inside the ravine was colder, stale. It smelled faintly metallic, like blood drying on stone. She switched to thermal for a moment, just to confirm what her eyes already believed. The heat signature was there, dimmer now, weaker, but still present. She followed it deeper, stepping around debris, keeping her weapon angled down but ready. Then she saw him. Commander Jameson Kane lay half-concealed behind a slab of rock in torn earth. His body was positioned with the stubborn intelligence of someone who had tried to hide even while injured. His helmet was cracked. One strap hung loose. His face was pale beneath a smear of dust and dried blood. His leg was wrong, bent at an angle that made Reese's stomach tighten. A tourniquet was cinched high on his thigh, darkened at the edges. Blood loss had been controlled. Barely. but the way his skin glistened under sweat told her what she feared. Fever, infection setting in. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and irregular. Reese moved closer, keeping low, scanning the ravine edges for movement. She knelt beside him and set her rifle against the rock within easy reach. She pulled off one glove and pressed 2 fingers to his neck. Pulse was there, weak, thready, but there. Kane's eyes opened. For a split second they were sharp with instinct. His hand moved toward his pistol. Reese caught his wrist, gentle but firm. Easy, it's okay. Kane blinked, trying to pull her face into focus. His voice came out rough, scraped raw by pain and thirst. Who? Gunnery Sergeant Caldwell, Marine sniper, overwatch on your op. Kane's eyes tried to focus, failed. You shouldn't be here. Probably not. Reese released his wrist and reached for her pack. But here I am anyway. She pulled out a water pouch and brought it to his lips. Small sips, don't chug it. Kane drank, grimaced. His throat worked painfully. More, Reese said, giving him another measured amount. Then she pulled the pouch back. That's enough for now. Too much and you'll vomit. She set the water aside and turned her attention to his leg. She cut away the fabric around the wound with a small blade, careful not to jar the limb. The smell hit her immediately, sharp, sickly. Infection had already started its work. She kept her expression neutral. Emotion could come later. Right now, her hands were the only thing keeping him alive. She cleaned what she could with antiseptic wipes, working methodically. Kane's jaw clenched. A sound escaped him that he tried to swallow. I know, Reese said quietly. I'm sorry, but I need to pack this. She used hemostatic gauze, pressing firmly, controlling the fresh bleeding that started when she disturbed the wound. She checked the tourniquet, adjusted it a fraction tighter, then pulled out antibiotics. This is going to burn, she said, prepping the injection. But you need it. She administered the dose with a controlled hand. No shaking, no hesitation. Kane's breathing became more labored. His eyes closed again. Reese checked his pupils with a small light. Responsive. Slow, but responsive. She wrapped a thermal blanket around his torso, tucking it tight. Stay with me, Commander. Kane's eyes opened halfway. They didn't come. No, they didn't. Smart. His voice was barely a whisper. Would have lost more men. Maybe. You came alone. Yes. Kane drifted, his fever climbing. Hours passed. Reese kept him alive through sheer will and medical supplies that were running out. She gave him water in measured doses, monitored his vitals, adjusted the blanket when he shivered, wiped sweat from his forehead when the fever spiked. The sun climbed higher. Heat began to build in the ravine. She pulled her boonie lower to shade her eyes and kept watching the approaches. Then, in a moment of clarity, Kane's eyes opened, focused. Phantom, he whispered. That's your call sign. Reese paused. How do you know that? Garrett, on the radio, before, he coughed. Phantom, Ghost Valkyrie, that was Wyatt's. The name hung in the air. Reese's hand stopped moving. You knew him. Helmand, 2019, Kane's voice broke. He saved my entire team. Held a building. We ran. He stayed. I never got to thank him. Reese's jaw tightened. She had heard pieces of this, never from someone who was there, who owed their life to her brother. You're his sister, Kane said. Not a question, a realization. Yes. He talked about you, once. Said his little sister was going to be a better sniper than he ever was. Tears tracked through the dust on Kane's face. Looks like he was right. Reese looked at him for a long moment. He saved you, so I'm saving you. That's how this works. Kane's hand moved weakly toward hers, squeezed once. Thank you. She gave him more water. More antibiotics from her dwindling supply. Then she keyed her radio. Ironside, Phantom. Package located. Alive. Critical condition. Garrett's voice came back immediately. Copy. Status? Tourniquet applied pre-contact. Infection setting in. Administered antibiotics. He's stable for now, but needs evac soon. Understood. Command still negative on recovery authorization. Copy that. Silence for a moment. Then Garrett spoke again. What's your play, Phantom? Reese looked at Kane, looked at the ravine walls, calculated distances, angles, escape routes. I hold here, keep him alive, wait for you to change their minds. And if I can't? Reese's voice was flat, final. Then I carry him out myself. That's a 5-click movement through enemy territory with a casualty. In daylight. I'm aware. Another pause, longer this time. When Garrett spoke again, his voice carried weight. Sit tight. I'm working on it. The radio went quiet. Reese settled into position. She adjusted her rifle, giving herself angles on the 2 main approaches to the ravine. She pulled out a protein bar and forced herself to eat half of it. Hydrated. Checked her ammunition count. 32 rounds in her primary magazine. 4 full magazines remaining in her vest. Not ideal, but enough if she was smart about it. Kane drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes his eyes opened and he seemed aware. Sometimes he muttered things that made no sense. Names, grid coordinates, fragments of radio calls. Reese monitored him. The sun continued its arc. Shadows shifted. The ravine became an oven. Above, on the ravine's edge, movement caught her eye. Reese's body went still. Not frozen. Controlled. She tracked the movement through her scope without shifting the rifle itself. 2 fighters. Moving slowly. Searching. They had not seen her yet, but they were working their way closer. Reese's finger moved to the trigger. She controlled her breathing. In. Out. Let half the breath escape. Hold. The first fighter stepped to the edge of the ravine and looked down. Reese's crosshairs settled on center mass. She began the trigger press. Slow. Steady. Then the fighter turned and called to his companion. They moved away from the edge, continuing their search pattern in a different direction. Reese eased off the trigger, exhaled slowly. Too close. Her radio crackled. Garrett's voice, urgent but controlled. Phantom, Ironside, enemy activity increasing. They're searching in grid pattern. Looks like they know someone's in the area. Reese keyed once. Your position is going to get compromised if they keep expanding the search. I'm trying to push through a QRF authorization, but meeting resistance. How long can you hold? Reese looked at Kane. His breathing was worse, faster, shallower. She keyed her radio. As long as it takes. That's not a tactical answer. It's the only answer I have. Garrett was quiet for several seconds. Then his voice came back softer. I'm going to tell you something and you need to listen. Not as your chief, as someone who cares whether you make it home. Reese waited. The math on this is bad, Garrett said. 1 sniper with limited ammunition against an unknown number of hostiles in a confined position with a casualty who can't move. This is how people get posthumous medals. I know the math. Then you know there's a point where staying becomes suicide. There's also a point where leaving becomes cowardice. That's not fair. Didn't say it was. Reese adjusted her position slightly, keeping eyes on the approaches. But I'm not leaving him. You know why. Because of Wyatt. Because someone has to break the pattern. Her voice was hard, certain. Someone has to decide that the next time a man goes down in a bad place, we don't write him off as acceptable losses. We go get him. Garrett did not respond immediately. When he did, his voice was thick. Your brother said almost the exact same thing to me once, before Hellman. Then you understand. I do, and it scares the hell out of me. The radio went quiet again. Reese pulled out Wyatt's compass, held it. The metal was warm from her body heat. She opened it. The needle swung, settled, pointed north. She thought about the last time she had seen her brother, 2 weeks before he deployed. They had driven out to a shooting range in the desert, spent the day running drills. Wyatt had been in a good mood, relaxed, the kind of relax that came from knowing exactly what you were walking into and being okay with it. "You worried?" Reese had asked him. "About what?" "Deployment. The mission." Wyatt had shrugged. "Always worried, but that's just noise. You tune it out and do the job." "What if something goes wrong?" He had looked at her then, really looked at her. "Then you trust that the people behind you will come get you. And if they can't, you make sure you did enough damage on the way out that it mattered." Reese had nodded, not really understanding, not then. "Promise me something," Wyatt had said. "What?" "If I don't come back, don't let it make you scared. Let it make you better." She had promised, even though she did not think she would ever have to keep that promise. Now, sitting in an Afghan ravine with a dying commander and enemy fighters closing in, she understood what he had meant. Fear was noise. You tuned it out and did the job. Her radio crackled. "Phantom, Ironside, I've got movement on your position. 3 hostiles approaching from the east, 200 meters, and closing." Reese keyed twice. Acknowledged. She settled behind her rifle, controlled her breathing, waited. The first hostile appeared at the ravine edge. Young, maybe 20, rifle held wrong, finger on the trigger instead of along the receiver. Amateur. Reese tracked him, did not fire. Not yet. The second hostile appeared, older, moving with more caution. He said something to the younger one, pointed. They had not seen her yet, but they had seen something. Maybe Kane's broken rifle, maybe tracks in the dirt. The third hostile appeared. This one moved differently, professional, controlled. He scanned the ravine systematically. He saw her. His rifle came up. Reese fired. One shot, center mass. The man dropped. The younger hostile panicked, sprayed automatic fire into the ravine. Bullets sparked off rocks. Reese's second shot took him in the chest. He fell backward, out of sight. The older hostile dove for cover, began shouting, calling for support. Reese fired again. The round clipped his shoulder, spinning him. He scrambled away, still yelling. The valley erupted with sound. Shouts, movement, boots on stone. They knew where she was now. Reese ejected the partial magazine. She had fired 3 rounds. 29 left in this mag. She seated a fresh one from her vest. 32 rounds. The partial went into a dump pouch. Every round mattered now. She keyed her radio. "Contact. Position compromised. 3 hostiles engaged. 1 wounded and running. More incoming." "Copy," Garrett said. His voice was tight. "Stand by. I'm making the call." "What call?" "The one that's going to get me court-martialed." The radio went dead. The valley came alive with voices. Not the chaotic screaming of panic, but the controlled calls of men who knew what they were doing. Organized, coordinated, dangerous. Reese counted the voices, estimated positions, calculated angles. At least 8 hostiles, maybe more, and they were converging. She pulled back slightly from her position, putting a rock formation between herself and the most likely approach vector. She checked Kane. He was conscious, barely. His eyes tracked her movements. "How many?" he whispered. "Enough. You need to go." "Not having this conversation again, sir." Kane tried to push himself up, failed, his face contorted with pain. "Reese, listen to me. You can still make it out. Leave the rifle. Move fast. They'll be focused on this position. You can slip away." Reese loaded a fresh magazine into her rifle, seated it with a metallic click that echoed in the ravine. "I didn't come all this way to leave without you. Then we both die here." Maybe. She settled back behind her rifle. But not easily, not quietly, and not without making them pay for it. Kane stared at her. In his eyes, she saw something shift. Not resignation, recognition. He had seen this before, in Helmand, in her brother. "You're just like him," Kane said. "Wyatt, same stubbornness, same refusal to quit. He taught me everything I know. He never told me he had a sister. We were careful about that. Didn't want people making assumptions." "What kind of assumptions?" Reese's eyes never left her scope. "That I only got here because of him. That I was riding his reputation instead of earning my own. Anyone who thinks that is an idiot. Plenty of idiots in the world, sir." Movement at the ravine edge. Reese tracked it. A head appeared. She fired. The head disappeared. She did not know if she had hit or if the hostile had simply taken cover. Either way, it bought time. Her radio crackled. Not Garrett's voice, someone else. Old. Older. Authority that did not need to announce itself. "Phantom, this is actual. Authenticate Victor Tango 7. Reese's stomach tightened. That was not a call sign she recognized, but the authentication code was current, real. She keyed her radio. "Authenticated, who is this?" "Captain Mitchell Reeves, JSOC. I'm told you have a situation." "Yes, sir, one critical casualty. Enemy forces converging on my position. Request immediate QRF." "Negative on QRF. Area remains too hot for standard extraction." Reese's jaw clenched. "Then what are you offering, sir?" "Master Chief Garrett has been making noise up the chain for the past 2 hours. Loud noise, the kind that gets attention. He called in some favors, pulled some strings, threatened to go to the media if we left Commander Kane to die." "The media?" His exact words were, "I'll make sure every news outlet in America knows we abandoned a SEAL commander because some desk jockey decided it wasn't worth the risk." Turns out that threat carries weight. Despite everything, Reese almost smiled. "We've got a bird spinning up," Reeves continued, "but I need confirmation before I send it in. Is the package alive?" Reese looked at Kane. His eyes were closed, but his chest was rising and falling. "Affirmative, critical but stable. And you? Are you capable of defending the position until extraction arrives?" Reese did a quick mental calculation. Ammunition, enemy strength, time. The math was bad, but not impossible. "Affirmative. How many rounds do you have?" 61 rifle, 15 sidearm." Silence on the other end. Then Reeves spoke again, his voice careful. "Can you make it work?" Reese thought about Wyatt, thought about every hour they had spent on the range together, every lesson, every correction, every moment of patience when she was learning. "One shot, one kill," she said. "That's 61 kills if I don't miss." "You plan on not missing?" "I plan on trying real hard, sir." Another pause. Then Reeves said something that sounded almost like respect. "Bird's wheels up in 5 minutes. ETA to your position is 12 minutes. Can you hold that long?" "Yes, sir." "Good, because Master Chief Garrett made it very clear that if you die out there, he's going to make the rest of my career extremely unpleasant. So do me a favor and stay alive." "I'll do my best." "One more thing, what's your call sign?" Reese hesitated, not because she did not know, but because speaking it out loud made it real, made it official, made it hers instead of Wyatt's. "Ghost Valkyrie," she said quietly. The radio went completely silent. Not the hiss of dead air, human silence, the kind that came when people stopped breathing for a moment. Then Reeves spoke, and his voice had changed. Lower, waited. "Confirm, are you Ghost Valkyrie?" "Yes, sir." "The Valkyrie? Wyatt Caldwell's?" "I'm his sister. I carry his call sign." More silence. Then a different voice cut in, older than Reeves. Command presence that filled the radio like a physical thing. "Gunnery Sergeant Caldwell, this is Colonel Richard Santos. I knew your brother, served with him on 2 rotations. He was one of the best Marines I ever had the privilege to lead." "Thank you, sir." "When Master Chief Garrett told me Ghost Valkyrie was the one out there, I thought he was mistaken. I thought Wyatt's call sign died with him in Helmand." "It did, sir. and then I brought it back. Have you earned it? The question hung in the air, hard. Testing. Reese looked at Commander Kane, looked at the ravine walls, looked at the valley that was trying very hard to kill them both. Ask me in 12 minutes, sir. Santos made a sound that might have been a laugh. Fair enough. Recovery bird is en route. Call sign Striker 1. They'll come in fast and low. You'll need to mark your position with smoke when you hear the rotors. Understood. One more thing, Gunnery Sergeant. Sir? Make him proud. The radio went quiet. Reese blinked once, twice. Forced the emotion down, locked it away. Emotion was for later. Right now, she had work to do. She pulled out her smoke grenade, set it within easy reach. Then she settled back behind her rifle and waited. The enemy was not rushing. They were being smart about it, using cover, moving in coordinated bounds, one element providing covering fire while another advanced. Professional. Reese watched them through her scope, counted. 8 confirmed, maybe 9. Hard to tell with the way they were using terrain. Her first shot took the point man as he moved between rocks. He dropped without a sound. The others scattered, took cover, began returning fire. Bullets cracked against stone near her head. Chips of rock sprayed across her shoulders. She did not flinch, did not move, waited for the fire to slacken. When it did, she found another target, a man leaning out from behind a boulder to get an angle on her position. Her round took him in the upper chest. He fell backward. 2 down, 60 rounds left. More movement, this time from her left flank. They were trying to get an angle on her. She shifted position. Smooth, controlled. Found the target through her scope. A fighter low crawling through scrub brush. She led him slightly. Accounted for wind. Fired. The brush stopped moving. 3 down, 59 rounds. Commander Kane made a sound. A groan of pain. Stay still, sir, Reese said without taking her eye from the scope. How many? 5 or 6 left, maybe more. You're outnumbered. I've noticed. Kane tried to reach for his sidearm. His hand barely moved. Give me a weapon. I can help. You can barely hold your eyes open. No offense, sir, but you'd be more liability than asset right now. That's fair. Another hostile appeared. This one was smart, moved fast, used smoke from earlier fires as concealment. Reese tracked him, waited. He paused for just a second to orient himself. That second cost him. 4 down, 58 rounds. The return fire intensified. They were getting frustrated, angry, starting to make mistakes. One hostile stood up too much while changing position. Reese's round caught him mid-stride. 5 down, 57 rounds. Then she heard it, faint at first, growing louder. Rotors. The helicopter was still minutes out, but the sound carried across the valley like a promise. The enemy heard it too. Their fire increased. They knew what it meant. They knew they were running out of time. A hostile broke from cover, ran toward the ravine, trying to close distance before the helicopter arrived. Reese fired. He went down hard. 6 down, 56 rounds. Another runner, this one faster. Zigzagging, she led him. Fired. Missed. He kept coming. 30 meters. 20. She worked the bolt, chambered another round, fired again. This time he dropped. 7 down, 54 rounds. The rotor noise was loud now, close. The helicopter was maybe 2 minutes out. Reese grabbed the smoke grenade, pulled the pin, threw it toward open ground near the ravine mouth. White smoke billowed, thick, fast, rolling outward like a living thing. The enemy saw it, knew what it meant. They pushed hard, all of them, trying to overrun her position before the aircraft could land. 3 hostiles appeared through the smoke, moving fast. Reese fired. Reese fired. Worked the bolt. Fired again. Again. 2 went down. The third took cover. 9 down. 51 rounds. Her radio crackled. Phantom, Striker 1, I have your smoke. 30 seconds out. Copy. Heavy contact. Multiple hostiles converging. Roger, we're coming in hot. The remaining hostiles opened up with everything they had. Automatic fire raked the ravine. Rounds sparked off rocks, whined past her head. Reese kept shooting, methodical, controlled. Every shot placed with precision. A fighter appeared on her right flank. Close, too close. She swung her rifle, fired. The bolt locked back. Empty magazine. The fighter was still coming. 10 meters. 8. Reese dropped the rifle, drew her sidearm, double-tapped. The fighter went down. 13 rounds left in her pistol. Another hostile charged through the smoke. She fired. He dropped. 11 rounds. The helicopter roared overhead. A UH-60 Black Hawk. It came in fast and aggressive, nose down, banking hard. Door gunners opened up. Minigun fires shredded the landscape. Tracers cut bright lines through the smoke. The remaining hostiles broke. Scattered. Some tried to run. Some tried to return fire. The helicopter settled into a hover. Not landing. Too dangerous. But low enough. Fast ropes dropped. Bodies came down the ropes like falling rain. SEALs, moving with violent purpose. Master Chief Dalton Garrett was the first man down. At 62 years old, he moved like someone half his age. Rifle up, eyes scanning. He sprinted to the ravine edge and slid down. His eyes found Reese, then Kane. "You good?" Garrett shouted over the rotor wash. "I'm fine. Get him out of here." More SEALs poured into the ravine. A medic dropped beside Kane, started working immediately. IV lines, fresh bandages, calling out vitals. Senior Chief Marcus Hayes appeared next to Reese, the same man who had been ready to write Kane off hours earlier. He looked at her, at the bodies scattered across the valley, at the empty magazines beside her position. He did not say anything. He just straightened, slowly, deliberately, and saluted. Reese stared at him. "Senior Chief, I'm not—" "Show some respect, Gunnery Sergeant," Hayes said. His voice was hard, formal. "When a warrior earns a salute, you let them receive it." Other SEALs saw. One by one, they stopped what they were doing, turned, saluted. Lieutenant Holt, Petty Officer Pike. Even the medic paused in his work with Kane to render honors. Reese did not know what to do. She had never been saluted by SEALs before, by anyone really. She was enlisted, gunny, not an officer, but she returned the salute, sharp, precise. Master Chief Garrett stepped forward. He did not salute. He just looked at her for a long moment. "You broke the cycle," he said quietly, so only she could hear. 7 years I've been waiting to see someone do what you just did." Reese met his eyes. "We both broke it, together." Garrett nodded once. "Yeah, we did." They lifted Kane onto a litter, secured him, started moving toward the helicopter. "Can you walk?" Garrett asked Reese. "Yes." "Then let's get the hell out of this valley." They moved as a unit, SEALs forming a protective perimeter, door gunners providing suppressing fire. The helicopter pilot held position, despite taking sporadic ground fire. Reese climbed up last. Looked back one more time at the ravine, at the place where she had made her stand. Then she pulled herself into the aircraft, and the pilot pulled pitch. The helicopter rose, banked hard, accelerated away from the valley. Inside the cargo bay, the medic worked on Kane, calling out vitals, adjusting IV drips. Kane's eyes were closed, but he was breathing. Garrett sat down next to Reese, handed her a bottle of water. She drank half of it in one pull. "How many rounds did you have left?" Garrett asked. Reese checked her sidearm. 9. Jesus. Could have been worse. Could have been better. Reese allowed herself a small smile. "Yeah, could have been." They flew in silence for a while. The valley fell away behind them. Mountains gave way to flatter terrain. The forward operating base appeared on the horizon. "They're going to want a debrief," Garrett said. "I know." Probably going to ask why you disobeyed direct orders. Let them ask. What are you going to tell them? Reese looked at him. The truth, that some orders deserve to be disobeyed, that some men deserve to be brought home, and that I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Garrett nodded slowly. That's going to make some people uncomfortable. Good. They should be uncomfortable. Maybe next time they'll think twice before writing someone off. The helicopter touched down. Medical personnel rushed forward with a stretcher. They transferred Kane quickly, efficiently. He disappeared into a triage tent. Reese climbed out. Her legs felt heavy. Her body was starting to realize what it had just been through. Garrett steadied her with a hand on her shoulder. You need medical? I'm fine. That's not what I asked. I'm not injured. Also not what I asked. Reese looked at him. Understood. I will be fine. Eventually. Good enough. They walked toward the operations center. People stared. Word had already spread. The Marine who went in alone. The sniper who held off an entire enemy element. Ghost Valkyrie. Colonel Santos was waiting outside the ops tent. He was tall, lean, gray hair cut military short, the kind of officer who had spent more time in the field than behind a desk. He looked at Reese, extended his hand. Gunnery Sergeant Caldwell. She shook it. Sir, hell of a thing you did out there. Just doing my job, sir. Your job is Overwatch, not solo rescue operations in enemy territory. Yes, sir. So why did you do it? Reese considered the question, thought about all the answers she could give, all the explanations and justifications and tactical reasoning. Instead, she told the simple truth. Because no one should die alone wondering if anyone cared enough to try, sir. Santos studied her face. That why your brother did it? In Helmand? Yes, sir, I think so. He saved Commander Kane's entire platoon. Did you know that? Kane told me, while I was treating him. 6 men walked out of that building because Wyatt Caldwell held the line. He knew the building was compromised, knew it was coming down, stayed anyway. Santos paused. We put him in for a Navy Cross, posthumous. His family received it about 6 months after he was killed. Reese had not known that. Her mother had never mentioned it. Maybe it hurt too much. Maybe the medal felt like a poor trade for a son. He was a hell of a Marine, Santos said. And from what I saw today, so are you. Thank you, sir. Get some rest. We'll debrief in the morning. And Gunnery Sergeant? Sir, you're not in trouble, just so we're clear. What you did was reckless and insubordinate and violated about 6 different regulations. He allowed himself a small smile. But it was also exactly what a Marine should do. So officially, I'm going to chew your ass. Unofficially, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did out there. That's not necessary, sir. It is. Because Marines need to know that we don't leave our people behind, even when command says otherwise. Even when the math looks bad, we go get them. He saluted. Reese returned it. Then Santos walked back into the ops tent. Garrett waited until they were alone. You handled that well. Was I supposed to handle it differently? Most people would have tried to justify it, make excuses. You just owned it. Nothing to excuse. I'd do it again. I know, that's what scares me. They walked in silence back toward the living area. The sun was fully up now. The base was coming alive. Marines and SEALs moving through their daily routines. I have something for you, Garrett said. He reached into his vest and pulled out a small object. Dog tags. Old. Worn. The metal was tarnished in places. Reese recognized them immediately. Those are Wyatt's. Yeah, I've been carrying them since Helmand. Meant to give them to your mother, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Felt like admitting he was really gone. He held them out. But you brought him back today. In a way. You finished what he started, so I think he'd want you to have these. Reese took the tags, read the stamped information, Wyatt's name, his service number, his blood type. O positive, same as hers. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me. I should have given them to you years ago. Garrett's voice was thick. I should have done a lot of things differently. You did what you could. And so did you. Better than I ever did. They reached the hooch where Reese's gear was stored. She started to go inside, then paused. Master Chief. Yeah? Why did you really help me? It wasn't just about Wyatt. You risked your career, your pension, everything. Garrett was quiet for a long moment. When Wyatt died, I made myself a promise. If I ever got another chance to do the right thing, I wouldn't let rank or regulations or fear stop me. I'd just do it. He met her eyes. You gave me that chance, so thank you. I didn't do it for you. I know, you did it for Kane, for Wyatt, for yourself. But it helped me anyway. He turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, one more thing. Captain Reeves wanted me to tell you that your call sign is now official. Ghost Valkyrie. It's in the system. On the roster. It's yours. Reese felt something catch in her chest. Wyatt's call sign? No, not anymore. It's yours now. You earned it. He walked away, leaving Reese alone with Wyatt's dog tags in her hand. She went inside, sat on her rack, looked at the tags for a long time. Then she pulled out her own tags, unclasped the chain, added Wyatt's tags to hers, put the chain back around her neck. The metal was cool against her skin. Familiar weight, like carrying a piece of him with her. She lay back, closed her eyes. For the first time in 36 hours, allowed herself to feel the exhaustion. Sleep came fast, deep, dreamless. When she woke 6 hours later, it was to someone shaking her shoulder. A young corporal, nervous. Gunnery Sergeant, sorry to wake you, but Commander Kane is asking for you. Reese sat up, rubbed her face. He's awake? Yes, Gunny, just came out of surgery. Doctors say he's stable. She followed the corporal to the medical facility. Kane was in a recovery bed, hooked up to monitors and IV lines. His leg was bandaged, elevated, but his eyes were clear. He saw her, tried to sit up. A nurse gently pushed him back down. Easy, sir, the nurse said. I need to talk to her. You need to rest. I'll rest after I talk to her. The nurse looked at Reese, shrugged. 5 minutes, no more. She left them alone. Kane looked at Reese for a long moment. They told me you stayed, fought off an entire enemy element by yourself. I had help. Master Chief Garrett sent the cavalry. After you held them off long enough for the cavalry to arrive, he shook his head. That was insane. Probably. Why did you do it? Reese considered the question. The same question everyone kept asking. Why? Because 7 years ago my brother died in a place like that ravine, alone, waiting for help that never came. And I decided that if I ever had the chance to make sure that didn't happen to someone else, I would take it. Kane's eyes were wet. He saved my life twice, once in Helmand, once today through you. He had a habit of doing that. I never got to thank him. He wouldn't have wanted thanks. He would have wanted you to live, to go home to your family, to matter. I have a daughter, Kane said quietly. Emma, she's 7. I hadn't seen her in 8 months when I deployed. You'll see her soon. Because of you. Reese did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Kane reached out, took her hand. His grip was weak but sincere. Thank you. For my life. For not giving up. For being the kind of Marine your brother would be proud of. You're welcome, sir. And I'm sorry about Wyatt, about what happened. I've carried that guilt for 7 years. Don't. He made his choice. He knew what he was doing, and he'd do it again. Like sister, like brother. Something like that. The nurse came back, gave Reese a look that said, "Time's up." Reese stood. "Get some rest, sir. You've got a long recovery ahead." Caldwell? Sir? When I get back stateside, I'd like you to meet my daughter. I think she should know who saved her father. Reese nodded. I'd like that. 3 weeks later, Commander Jameson Kane was medevac to Germany, then to the States. He underwent 2 more surgeries, lost part of his leg below the knee, but he lived. Reese received orders to the Marine Sniper School in Quantico, instructor position. Starting in 6 weeks, on her last day in Afghanistan, she walked out to a quiet spot on the edge of the base, sat on a rock overlooking the valley. She pulled out Wyatt's compass, opened it. The needle swung, settled, pointed home. "I finished it," she said quietly to the memory of her brother. "Your mission, your legacy. I brought him home, the man you saved." The wind picked up, carried dust and the smell of distant fires. "I'm going to teach now, like you taught me. I'm going to make sure the next generation knows what it really means to be a sniper. Not just the shooting, the responsibility, the choice to stand when everyone else sits, to fight when everyone else quits." She closed the compass, held it tight. "I miss you, every day. But I'm okay, better than okay, because you taught me how to be strong, how to be stubborn, how to never quit." She stood, looked out at the mountains one last time. "Ghost Valkyrie is mine now. I earned it, but I'll carry it for both of us. For what you were, for what you taught me to be." She turned and walked back to base, ready for whatever came next. 2 months later, Reese stood in the arrivals terminal at Reagan National Airport. She was in dress blues, nervous in a way that combat never made her. Commander Kane appeared from the gate, walking with a cane, his daughter Emma holding his other hand. Emma saw Reese first, pointed, said something to her father. Kane smiled, walked over. "Gunnery Sergeant Caldwell." "Commander, good to see you on your feet, sir." "What's left of them." He gestured to his leg. "But I'm here, and that's what matters." He knelt down next to his daughter. "Emma, this is the Marine I told you about, the one who came to get me." Emma looked up at Reese with wide eyes. 7 years old, blonde hair and pigtails. "You saved my daddy?" Reese knelt down too, eye level with the little girl. "I helped, but he's pretty tough. He saved himself too." "He said you're a hero." "Your dad's the hero. He leads Marines into dangerous places." "But you went into a dangerous place by yourself. To get him." Reese smiled. "I did." "Why?" The question was simple, innocent, but it carried the weight of everything. "Because your daddy is worth it. Because he has people who love him and need him. Because sometimes the right thing to do is hard and scary, but you do it anyway." Emma thought about that. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a piece of paper, folded carefully. "I made this for you." She unfolded it, a crayon drawing, a stick figure Marine with a long rifle, a bright red cape flowing behind, another stick figure next to her, smaller, holding the Marine's hand. Above them, written in uneven letters, "Thank you for bringing my daddy home." Reese felt something break inside her chest. Not break, open. She took the drawing, carefully, like it was made of glass. "Thank you, Emma. This is beautiful. This is perfect. You can keep it." "I will. I'll keep it forever." Kane stood, extended his hand. Reese stood and shook it. "I meant what I said in Afghanistan," Kane said. "You saved my life. But more than that, you gave my daughter her father back. I can never repay that." "You don't have to, sir. Just live. Be a good dad. That's payment enough." Emma tugged on Reese's sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are there girl Marines?" "There are." "Can I be one when I grow up?" Reese looked at Kane. He smiled, nodded. "Yes," Reese said. "You can be anything you want. Marine, doctor, teacher, whatever you choose. But if you do become a Marine, you have to promise me something." "What?" "That you'll remember why we do this job. Not for medals or glory, but to protect people, to bring people home, to stand up when it matters most." Emma nodded solemnly. "I promise." Reese reached into her pocket and pulled out a small brass cylinder, a spent rifle casing. She had kept it from the ravine, the shot that had saved Kane's life. This is from the day I saved your father, Reese said. Every shot I fire has a purpose. This one's purpose was to bring him home to you. She placed the casing in Emma's small hand. I want you to have this, so you remember that what we do matters, that every choice has weight, and that when things get hard, you remember someone cared enough to fight for what was right. Emma looked at the brass casing, warm from Reese's pocket. I'll keep it forever. I know you will. Then Reese pulled out Wyatt's compass, opened it. The needle pointed north, toward home. She closed it, put it back in her pocket. Some things you kept, some things you carried forever. Kane's eyes were wet. He put a hand on his daughter's shoulder. What do you say, Emma? Thank you, Miss Marine. Reese smiled. You're welcome. And it's Gunnery Sergeant, but you can call me Reese. They talked for a few more minutes, made plans to stay in touch. Kane promised to visit Quantico when Reese started her instructor position. Then they said goodbye. Kane and Emma walked toward the exit. Emma turned back once, waved. Reese waved back. She stood in the terminal for a long time after they left, thinking about Wyatt, about Kane, about Emma and the compass in the drawing folded carefully in her pocket. Real heroes rarely look heroic. They do not glow. They do not arrive with music. They often stand quietly at the edge of the room, covered in dust, trying not to be noticed. Honor is not what you claim. It is who you refuse to abandon. Stories like this rarely make headlines. There is no parade for the long walk into darkness. No camera waiting when someone chooses to move forward while everyone else is being told to stand down. Yet these unseen warriors exist. They always have. Men and women who carry someone else's life as if it were their own. Even when the cost is personal. Even when the odds say, walk away. They are not loud. They are not chasing recognition. They simply do what needs to be done. Reese Caldwell stood in front of 20 young Marines at the Scout Sniper School in Quantico. First day of training. They looked at her with the mixture of respect and uncertainty that came with meeting a legend. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the classroom. The smell of gun oil and fresh coffee filled the air. Her rifle rested on the table behind her, the same rifle that had fired those shots in Afghanistan. My name is Gunnery Sergeant Reese Caldwell, she said. Her voice was clear, strong, the voice of someone who had earned the right to speak. Call sign, Ghost Valkyrie. Some of you may have heard the stories. Most of them are exaggerated. A few nervous laughs rippled through the room. But I'm going to tell you the one story that matters, about the day I learned what this job really means. She pulled out Wyatt's dog tags from beneath her blouse. Let them catch the light. The metal gleamed, tarnished, but real. These belong to my brother, Sergeant Wyatt Caldwell, Marine sniper, killed in Helmand, 2019. He died because the people who could have saved him chose not to. The room was silent, 20 faces watching her, listening. 7 years later, I had a choice. Leave a man to die, or break every rule to bring him home. She paused. I brought him home, and in doing so, I learned what my brother died trying to teach me. She looked at each of them, met their eyes, made sure they understood. Being a sniper isn't about the shot, it's about the choice. The choice to stand when others sit, to fight when others quit, to refuse to accept that anyone is expendable. She held up the dog tags. The chain swayed slightly. You will make impossible shots. You will operate alone in hostile territory. You will be asked to do things that scare you. But the hardest thing you will ever do is decide that a life is worth saving, even when command says no, even when the math says it's suicide, even when everyone else has given up. Reese put the tags back around her neck, let them settle against her chest, right where they belonged. Welcome to Sniper School. For the next 12 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to shoot, but more importantly, I'm going to teach you why we shoot. Because a sniper who doesn't care about the people they protect is just a murderer with good aim. She picked up a rifle, M40A6, the same model Wyatt had carried. My brother used to say, one shot, one kill. I say, one shot, one life saved. That's the difference. That's why we do this. She set the rifle down, looked at them again. I'm not going to lie to you. This training will be hard. Some of you won't make it. Some of you will decide this isn't for you. That's okay. This job isn't for everyone. She walked to the window, looked out at the range, the targets standing in neat rows. But if you stay, if you make it through, if you earn the title of Marine Scout Sniper, you'll carry something with you for the rest of your life. Not just the skills, not just the knowledge, but the responsibility. She turned back to face them. The responsibility to be the person others can count on. The one who doesn't quit. The one who brings people home, no matter what. Outside, the sun climbed higher. Inside, a new generation of snipers sat straighter, listened harder, began to understand what Ghost Valkyrie really meant. Not a call sign, a promise. A Marine in the front row raised his hand. Young, maybe 19. Gunnery sergeant? Yes. The commander you saved, is he okay? Reese smiled. It was a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. He's home with his daughter, teaching her how to be brave, how to be strong, how to stand up for what's right. She paused. That's what winning looks like. Not medals, not headlines, just people going home to the people they love. She walked back to the front of the classroom. All right, enough talking. Grab your gear. We're heading to the range. Time to see if any of you can actually shoot. They stood, moved with purpose, energy, the nervous energy of people who knew they were about to be tested. As they filed out, one Marine lingered, a woman, also young. She approached Reese carefully. Gunnery sergeant? Yeah? I just wanted to say thank you for showing us it's possible. For women, I mean, in this job. Reese looked at her, saw something of herself at that age. Before Wyatt died, before Afghanistan, before Ghost Valkyrie became hers. You don't need my permission to be here, Reese said. You earned your spot just like everyone else. Now go out there and prove you deserve to keep it. The woman nodded, straightened, walked out with her head high. Reese stood alone in the empty classroom for a moment. She pulled out Emma's drawing, unfolded it carefully, the stick figure Marine with the red cape. The little girl holding her hand. She had pinned it to her wall at home, next to a photo of Wyatt, next to the folded flag from his funeral, next to the Navy Cross citation. But she carried a copy with her. Always, a reminder of why it mattered. She folded the drawing, put it back in her pocket, then she walked out into the Virginia sunshine. The range spread before her, Marines moving through drills, the crack of rifles, the smell of gunpowder, the familiar rhythms of training. This was home now, not the barracks, not the FOB. Here, teaching, passing on what Wyatt had taught her, making sure his sacrifice meant something. Master Chief Garrett had retired 2 months ago. He sent her a letter every week from his fishing cabin in Montana. Brief updates, stories about his grandkids, never mentioning Afghanistan, never needing to. Colonel Santos had called last week, asked how she was settling in, told her he was putting her in for a Bronze Star. She told him it wasn't necessary. He told her it was happening anyway. Commander Kane sent photos of Emma every month. The little girl growing, thriving. The brass casing Reese had given her now hung on a chain around Emma's neck. Her own dog tags, Kane had written, her reminder that heroes are real. Reese walked down to the firing line, watched her students set up. Some fumbled with their equipment, some moved with confidence, all of them trying, all of them learning. One of the instructors approached, Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Webb, former Scout sniper, 2 deployments, good man. How do they look? Webb asked. Green, but they'll learn. You were green once too, Reese smiled. Long time ago. Not that long. Webb nodded toward the students. Think any of them will be as good as you? I hope they'll be better. Better than Ghost Valkyrie? That's a high bar. Reese watched a young Marine adjust his scope. Take his time. Breathe. Fire. The target pinged. Center mass. The bar should be high, she said. Lives depend on it. Webb studied her for a moment. You doing okay? Really? Yeah, I am. The nightmares? Still there. Probably always will be, but I'm handling them. Good, because these kids need you. The Corps needs you. He walked away to help a struggling student. Reese stood watching, the afternoon sun warm on her face, the sound of rifle fire, a steady percussion. She thought about Wyatt, about how proud he'd be to see her here, training the next generation, passing on the legacy. She thought about Kane, about Emma, about the choice she'd made in that Afghan valley. She thought about all the people who didn't make it home, all the flags folded, all the families broken, all the warriors who died waiting for help that never came. And she made a promise. To herself, to Wyatt, to every student who would pass through her classroom. No one gets left behind. Not on my watch. Not ever again. Ghost Valkyrie wasn't just her call sign anymore. It was her mission, her purpose, her reason for being here. And she would carry it forward. Every day, every class, every student, every shot. One shot, one life saved. That was the difference. That was why they did this. And Reese Caldwell would make damn sure that every Marine who graduated from her program understood it in their bones, the way Wyatt had understood it, the way she now understood it, the way it should be. She picked up a rifle, loaded a magazine, settled into position beside her students. Watch, she said, this is how it's done. She breathed, aimed, fired. The target rang, perfect center. The students watched, learning, growing, becoming. And somewhere, in a place beyond mountains and deserts and battlefields, Wyatt Caldwell smiled. His little sister had become everything he knew she could be. Ghost Valkyrie, legend, teacher, warrior, the one who brought people home, always.